Live from a windowless office above the parts counter, Fixed Ops Focus, starring Dave Rogers and Steve Shaw.
Welcome, Dave Rogers. Hair jokes. There we go. Welcome. Good morning. What's happening? How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. On the road today, so hanging out in lovely Atlanta, Georgia. Gonna go see one of the World Cup games later on today. Should be
Awesome.
fun.
Awesome.
It was nice. The weather wasn't oppressive. It was actually in the 60s this morning, which everybody on the television was making it like it was a big deal because it was like 62 degrees in the morning. So I guess it gets pretty damn hot down here. But yeah, everything's good. Just doing a normal travel thing, and you're used to it. I'm not. I don't really travel that much. So, how you doing, man? What's going on? I haven't talked to you.
Well, all of you guys keep making fun of me because I'm pasty white. So I'm down here in the Keys trying to get out and get some sun and be ready for our Friday live podcast where I can actually have some color, right? I might even do something with my hair for our Friday event. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but what's on your mind for real? What's on your mind for real today?
Well, I mean, I think I've seen a couple stories online. I've heard a few things, and one of the notes I wrote down was mentoring, and I wrote down coaching, and I wrote down how some people are good at it and some people aren't, and why we need more of it. So I figured you're the trainer. We talk coaching a lot. So tell me what you got going on. Tell me a story from your recent events, because I know you always have them with the training and coaching.
Well, what's funny is I have a group of trainers on the road, right? So I don't travel and I'm not in the store as much as I used to, right? So my guys are out there doing it, but I do spend a lot of time on the phone or on Zoom like this with my clients and so on. And it seems like everything we're talking about right now is exactly that. It's coaching, it's mentoring, it's training. It's not about checking a box. It's about learning. It's about growing. And how do we do that? And I think you're right. There's some people that are really good at coaching, and others, it's just a word, right? It doesn't mean something to them, And training is one thing, coaching is another thing, and having the ability to bring somebody in a positive fashion, right? And guiding that person to a new, to the direction that you want them to go, right? Training is me disseminating some information, right? I'm giving you some information. I'm sharing with you tools. We always talk about tell, show, do, review from a training perspective. But coaching is like, okay, that's the review part, right? I'm reviewing with you and I'm showing with you the things that you're doing well and the things that need improvement, right? And the whole goal is to make it a positive way. And I think so many people, though, from a training perspective, want to check a box and just get it done. And then other people are, well, I told them, and then they let it go, right? And so it can be going off the rails, and somebody will just say, well, I told them to do it, but they're not putting those guidelines or keeping them within those rails, right? So that's kind of where I'm at right now with lots of my clients, starting out.
The university, obviously, you and I talked couple of weeks ago, and I said, hey, give me a list of all the names, everyone that's enrolled in the stores, because people can, I guess when we first started this, they could kind of put their own store in there, or they'd select more than one or whatever. And I was just trying to clean it up a little bit, and some people have left, some people moved on, changed stores, whatever it is. And it was funny because I took the list, and we had some specific stores that I believe could really use training, right? I mean, their sales are down or they're not growing the way they were. And it was amazing how there was no one in the store registered, right? Or everyone that had been registered left, and there's none of the new employees, including managers,
Yeah.
And I don't like calling people out on it. And I'm trying not to insult anybody. You try to do this with a positive, motivational way, like you said. But at what point do you just get frustrated because people, they're not even using the tools that they have provided for them
Right.
to get better? Like, what are you busy doing during a day that you can't spend a couple minutes in training, a couple minutes in teaching, a couple minutes in coaching meaningful? I mean, because, like you said, you touch base on is checking the box. That's the term I used to use when I was with the Publix, is Mickey and the metric, right? Some it was just Mickey and the Metric. That's what it was, right? Some initiative would come from some, relative of somebody in Detroit. They had this new thing. They reinvented the past. What is it? Nothing's new, but what's been forgotten, right? So
Right.
they would come up with something, and it was never anything new. There was never anything that, oh my God, that's a great idea. Because there's never a lot of new stuff in the car business, right?
Right.
And it wasn't going to make us more money. It wasn't going to give us any more customers. It wasn't going to do anything. So what you end up doing, you just got tired of the emails. You got tired of the pounding. You got tired of the BS. And, all you did was click the box. You Mickey the metric, right? Just to get them off your back.
Right.
That'd be the first thing you did in the morning. All right, let's make sure all my internet leads are responded to so I don't have to listen to anybody in Detroit, right? So
Right.
now let's go sell cars. Right,
Yeah.
that type of thing. And the same thing goes I see with the training, and it's just frustrating because I didn't have those tools a lot of times when I was younger growing up, but I did have good coaches and I did have good mentors. So,
Mhm.
so there is a trade off on these things, but yeah, I agree with you 100%. And it's silly to watch some of this stuff with the people just checking the box. It really is. What's the point? You know?
Right. Yeah, we had a dealer group that just went through and took 10 classes over the course of 3 days,
Right.
and, so I sent a nice email back and I go, "Congrats, I'm excited for you. I applaud your enthusiasm." But in the same time, they sent me a bunch of questions about what I just answered in the class, right? So it was, "Let's just run through this. Let's answer the 5 questions." Maybe we
Right.
took the video, maybe we didn't, but we just checked the box. And so it didn't whatever amount of time that you spent, going through that didn't produce any results, and so that was, again, checking the box. Mickey and the Metrics, that's a good name for the for the title of this episode, right? It's just
Yeah.
we checked the box. I didn't get anything out of it. And you said it all the time. Are you working in the business or are you working, on the business? And I was talking to a group yesterday, and they were in Kansas. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan, and we were just kind of joking about the Cardinals Royals series that just happened. But we were talking about the coaching aspect of it, and I'm fascinated more so with strategy and the coaching and how I'm watching these players develop more than I am about the win or the loss, right? It doesn't matter to me. I know the Cardinals are not going to win the World Series, but it's fun to watch the games and it's fun to watch people develop and people grow. And there's a whole thing about some of these pitchers are just having a terrible time, but incrementally throughout the season, they're getting a little better, right? They're lasting a little bit longer in the game. Certain pitches are getting a little bit better or this or that, right? And that's what I think is super cool about the whole thing is they've got a staff of people that are just there to design to coach and mentor and help people develop. And we don't have that in the business. And I understand it's all financial and so on. And I understand that our managers aren't that person either, right? They have enough things on their plate. Somewhere in the world, though, we have to, as an organization or as an industry, we got to figure out this coaching thing, or our people are going to be the same. And I can tell you that we have tremendous success stories. Some of your people are in that success category, where they've
Mhm.
taken the training and they've run with it, right? But they're the 1%, They're those rookies of the year. There's the all stars. There's the people that are doing it. But most people are in that mass category. They need someone to guide them as well, right? I can give you the tools, and then you have to. Somebody's got to teach you how to use those and share those with you appropriately. If not, that's all it is. And I talk to people all the time. I'm try to be very forthright. If you're just going to check the box, don't pay the money because it's not worth it. You're wasting everybody's time. And so it's very important to have a champion. It's very important to have the champion's got to be the coach, right? We can have a
Mhm.
champion that's responsible for the metrics, but we got to have somebody that's responsible for the coaching aspect and make sure that people are doing the job applying those new skills, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, a lot of stuff on that, obviously, a lot of points. One thing is that I think that, and I was talking to somebody last night at dinner, and we were having this discussion about, what makes people take the next level, what makes you, how do you grow in this business and everything, and there's a lot of things, right? You have luck, you have different stuff, but I've always felt and one of my buddy Joe Camarada is going to laugh at this, but being a student of the game.
Yeah.
right? And I think, that's what you get in baseball, 'cause, they're professionals, right? They get paid a lot of money to play a kids game, is what they do. Um, and, yeah, they have the financial resources. They can have the coaches. They can have the batting coach. They can have the throwing coach. They can have a catcher coach. They can have, you have a coach for a coach for a coach for a coach, right? You have a coach in
Right.
case somebody calls out sick coach.
Yeah.
Um, we don't, we don't necessarily, not that we couldn't afford it in the car business, but a lot of times we just don't because, we do make money. Most dealerships make money, not all, and not all make a good profit, but the thirst for knowledge and knowing and getting better at your craft is something that comes from inside of you,
Exactly.
and I don't know if you could teach that. I know some people aren't students of the game. They're there for the paycheck. They're never going to be that, rising superstar. They're just not going to be. Then there's other people that are. Maybe they can learn, to be a student of the game. I don't know. And then the other thing is, the coaching. Yeah, some of the best GMs I've ever seen in the business, and we've had a few of them work, in the current group I'm with, and I'll shout them out as they come across. But one in particular, a lot of times when you talk to him, you never got the warm fuzzy. You never really got, like he was just very mellow. He just, he really wasn't, you just never got this enthusiasm from him. But the one thing he did, I always thought was great was, and there's been a bunch of them out there, so I'm not just picking, saying the one guy, is he filled the gaps between what his managers were good at and what they weren't good at. And he had a manager in the store in the service department that was very dispatcherish, very techish, wasn't good on the front, wasn't good for the advisors, right? That manager he did not want to be with customer facing area. So this GM Randy would spend his time out there with the customers and the advisors to fill that gap. And I think the same thing goes with anything else, coaching, training, teaching. A lot of GMs are, they're high eyes, they're influential people. They talk, they're good, they're good. And they could coach up if they would spend a couple minutes coaching people instead of just, I saw a clip the other day of us talking, and we got some of these guys that just get service. The GMs don't know service, and they just go back there and they just chop people at their knees, right?
Right.
And they're not positive. So I think that's one thing that I think that as an industry we could do a little better is fill the gap. If my service manager is a technical guy and he's going to dispatch the work and he knows production and he knows how to get these trouble cars through the shop, then support him with someone else that maybe is a front end guy or somebody else that could be a coach to the advisors. And that's the kind of stuff I think we need to do a little better job instead of just saying, here's the mold, fill it. All right, Steve, you got to cover the whole base. You got to do front of the business, back of the business, coaching, training, warranty. You got to do the whole thing. And I don't think that's always possible nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a specialty skill. I believe uh, and there are people that have it. And, I think certainly in the old days, we were talking about that the other day too, things were different in the old days where we expected our GMs to really have be well-rounded in all of these areas. I grew up with a couple of GMs that were brilliant and they had a very well-rounded understanding of the business, and the guys that I had were very good coaches. But I also looked at it as I wanted to learn from them, you know what I mean? And so I would spend my days as much time as I could from them, watching them. And I remember going into my boss's office, or I remember as growing in the fixed ops arena going, okay, I can't make a mistake. I want to be better. Like I want to go in and impress. I want to make sure that I dot my I's and cross my T's. And then my people would see me as willing to grow and then wanting to invest in me. And so I think those people are not there as much, right? The people that have that well-rounded knowledge. But I don't know anybody better than most general managers or general sales managers from a sales perspective. And if anybody's going to coach us, like I don't care if you use Steve Shaw's approach, you know what I mean? But I think if the GMs and the GSMs in our stores shared their knowledge of sales training, I or a fixed ops guy could apply that to my, like I could turn that around if I wanted to and say, oh, I see what he's saying. Let me apply that to a repair order. Let me apply that to a service customer. I think that's so powerful and so much, it's out there. And I think we have guys in our stores that can do it. But do they want to do it? Will they do it? I guess that's the big question.
I think sometimes, the general managers don't realize how similar sales and service really are. They just don't. They come from sales. They think service is this mystical thing. There's a man behind the curtain. You don't want to go back to service. It's nasty. It's dirty. They deal with upset customers. Um, but there's similarities. Again, that's when we try to talk about the GM tip of the day from a fixed ops point of view and trying to bring that in light to general managers, there really isn't much difference. As far as coaching goes and training and teaching and mentoring and all that stuff, the same principles apply. I mean, you had mentioned again, your willingness to learn. You wanted to hang out with someone to learn. That's what I did. I mean, I didn't goof off all day, but I'd spend as much time as I could with people that could teach me something.
Yeah.
I'd go to the accounting office, and when I was up there, I used that time wisely. Teach me something, show me something, tell me why. Why'd you send that nasty email? What did I do wrong? That type of thing. Can you show me how that works? What's a journal entry? I remember sitting down with somebody looking at schedules, going, "What is this source thing? Like how does that work?" And learning that stuff from somebody that whether it was my accounting person, a controller, and my mentor EJ taught me a lot of that stuff, how to read schedules. He threw me in the fire a lot too. He's one of the biggest impacts of my life and in the business. And he's famous for he calls me up one day. He says, "Hey, bring Gary, the warranty administrator, over." So I walk him down. It was a complex. I walk him down the street, and I open up the door. I let Gary sit. Gary goes in, sits down. I go to close the door and sit down. Before I even sit down, I hear EJ say, "Gary, you're fired. Dave, help him get his shit out of his office." And like I barely sat down. I stood right up, opened the door, we walked back out, and it was that fast, right? And uh, I walked back after I got Gary out of the building. I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, "The guy's a thief. He was slimy. He was stealing. He was doing all this stuff." And this is my first job as a manager. I had no, like I didn't know, I had no idea. So I said, "Well, now what are you gonna do?" He goes, "You, my friend, are gonna learn how to do warranty." And I'm like, what does that mean? So he taught me. It was tough love, but I got into it. I learned it. I ran the schedules, learned how to do it, came up with a system. I did my own warranty for 2 years as a manager.
Yeah.
Hyundai, Dodge dealer. I did my own warranty from that point forward until I left. And whether that's great, good, bad, teaching, educating, mentor, whatever it is, it taught me a lot, and it still helps me today. So.
Do you think though? I mean, I was listening to you, and yeah, it's hard to teach. Does somebody have that fire? Right? It's hard to teach. But I think if we go back even one step further, did we hire the right person? Did we hire the person that has that fire or that ability? Or did we, as managers, again, did we just check the box, brought somebody in because we needed to fill a role? And I got stores right now. Oh my God, Craig's traveling right now for me, and we talk every day. And some of the stuff that he's telling me, I would tell you it's mind blowing, but it's just normal. Well, we're down a group. We're down today, so we stopped doing alignments today because one of our technicians is out sick. We should have 4 advisors. We only have 3. So instead of shutting off appointments, which I don't agree with, but instead of doing that, we're just going to have 25 people. We're going to write 25 tickets a day per advisor. Well, how about if we hired somebody? Right. And it's like, we've been going for weeks and weeks and weeks without, but we don't hire somebody. Well, I guess we're going to hire somebody. So let's just fill a box. Let's throw somebody out there. And I think you said it the other day. It's like, we have to have a third more people on our staff just because of attrition or this or that. Right. And so I think we put ourselves in these positions where we just have to fill the box or check the box, put a body in place, and we'll deal with it later, but we never deal with it. And there are groups, and I've been privy to work at some auto groups that are absolutely amazing at that. And then there are other groups and stores that just, it's the same thing. It's the churn, it's the burn over and over again. And we never get to a place where we could actually coach and train. It's management by chaos, by fire. It's all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the chaos, and I mean, again, all fairness to all the people in the stores trying to make things happen. I mean, the talent pool has been weak. There's a lot of people out there that just don't want to work, or they don't want to put in the effort, or whatever the case may be. I do think sometimes, a lot of times it is our fault. We don't put time and effort into coaching, training, teaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call it. But in hindsight, we just should have done a much better job for all these years growing our own or being out there. we've talked about it before about, why isn't the car business a career choice?
Yeah.
Like, most of us, I wrote that down too, as far as an episode one day, maybe is talk about how most of us got in this business. Most of us just got in this business. It was a summer job. It was a mistake, whatever the case may be. And, you know, it's a lucrative business. You can make a lot of money in this. There's no reason why it shouldn't be a career. And there could be, whether you're a career advisor, whether you're a career service manager, general manager, finance manager, sales manager, whatever the case is, parts counter person, whatever. Um, there's a lot of career opportunities in this business. And I don't think we sell it good. And I've been in these situations where I'll be honest with you, you are hiring out of desperation. Can you find your way back tomorrow? Can you fog a mirror? That's the only two questions I wanted to know. That was even before we did drug testing or background checks, right? Yeah, I mean, if you could find your way back tomorrow, you were in like Flint. Like I'd
Yeah.
hire you on the spot.
Yeah.
But the business has become more professional. It's gotten a lot more regulations in it. There's a lot more at stake, than I think we had back then. So we have to find ways to make this a career, legitimate career. And I think this is where the big guys have the advantage. That's where the publics have the advantage. I had a trainer when I was with Penske. We had a local guy in Turnersville. This guy Ed did a great job. He did a great job for me. He went out to the campuses, UTI. He had training classes for management and leadership skills. They had a corporate guy. They had the money to do that stuff. I guess we just got to find better ways of doing it, or find somebody in the staff that can do it as a side gig. Is probably what I would recommend.
Well, I mean, why don't people choose us? Because here's what I think, and I guess people can take it for what it's worth. Is the publics do have the ability and they have the financial resources, but every one of us, I believe, has a reason, has a way that doesn't cost us money to say, if you come to work for me today as a porter, I can show you a path to GM. Now, it may take you 25 years or it may take you, whatever, but based upon this, do we have a career path? And I don't think, some of the publics have it, some of them don't, some independents and some groups have it. But I would say by and large, that's the promotion that we're missing. And if I want to go from valet to CEO, how do I get there? And I don't think we do a good enough job of promoting that within. And heck, if I'm going to promote somebody, look, I never did what you did. I didn't get to become a GM. And that's the reason I ended up going out on my own, is because I thought, well, I'm never going to get to take that step. That step is not going to be there for me. Or maybe I didn't want to put in enough time to go sell cars or do whatever. So my next path was, I'm going to go work for myself. And I did. And so that ended up working out very well for me. In some of the guys that we've talked to, man, I mean, you and some of those other gentlemen, man, amazing. You put in the effort to go to the next step, right? But nobody said, Steve, hey, if you go sell cars, if you go do this, we will make sure that we consider you for our next role as a GM or a sales manager or whatever. It was just like, yeah, if you don't go sell cars, you're not ever going to get a chance. And so, but how do you take a step back if you're a fixed ops director and you're doing well, and then go, oh, I got to stop being a fixed director and go sell cars for a while, and I got to lose all my income and go broke, So I just see it as there's not a career path for these guys to go from valet to CEO or valet to manager or manager to next step. And that's frustrating. So we don't have that vision, or we can't paint that picture for ourselves. So, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm going to make as much money as I can. And then when the next better thing comes along, then I'm going to go there, and I think if we could do a better job of painting that picture for our associates, that, then we could, maybe that might help get them to buy into the fire.
It's funny that you say that. Hold on one second. No, okay. It's funny that you say that. Is because it isn't easy. I saw a LinkedIn post a couple days ago. I was going to respond to it. I didn't get a chance. A technician's been 25 years. You want to know, he's asking all the service managers, fixed ops managers and stuff, how did you get noticed? How did you get to that next level? What did it take to do? And I'm sure, everybody has a different story, right? But when you're looking at this, a lot of times you do have to go backwards to go forward. You have to take that step back. Unfortunately, I know technicians that make $150 a year, and to go to be an advisor, you're not going to step right in that job and make $150 a year, right?
Right.
Unless you're very fortunate or whatever. Um, I know salesmen. I had a salesman, Mike, that the guy sold 60 cars a month out of my Nissan store. He probably made closer to $225,000 at the time. He wanted to be a manager. That manager job paid 175 at the time. That's just what it paid, right? And I've been in situations where I was a service manager and I had technicians making more money than me all day long, right? And
Right.
that's just unfortunately the way the business works. It's not easy to do, and you have to be in a situation where if your wife makes a living or you can do it, whatever. It's not easy. I get it. You can learn. This is a novel concept. You could stay late at work and go learn. You could sell cars at night, which is what I did. I sold cars after work, and I sold cars on the Saturday to learn how to do that. Um, you could come in. This is another one. You could come in on your day off, right, and go learn something, go hang out with God forbid, and that's the other thing about being the student of the game conversation is, and I've used this expression 100 times. Anybody that's known me for a long time is going, oh, geez, not again, but, I used to tell my technicians, I used to tell people that work for me, Steve Shaw, you started a company. It's going to be Steve Shaw LLC or Steve Shaw Incorporated, and you're going to sell me stock or you want me to buy stock, right? I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And then my first question to you is how much do you own yourself? And you don't own any of your own stock, right?
Yeah.
So why would I invest in you? So if you're not going to use your day off to come up back to the dealership and spend time with the F&I manager or the sales, you know what I mean? Like if you're not going to do that in your own time, why am I investing in you?
Yeah.
And it goes back to the thirst for knowledge. I never heard for the first 20 years I was in the business, I never once thought of ever giving my lunch receipts, my toll receipts, or my gas receipts to my boss after go to a training class. I
Yeah.
never thought of it. Like it never occurred to me. Like maybe I'm stupid. Like I got paid for the day. They paid me for training, right? Whether I was a technician, a service advisor, or a service manager. I never thought about it. But nowadays, oh my God, they want their mileage, they want the gas, they want the tolls. They want, even though the school provided them lunch, they had to stop for a snack on the way. They want to know if they want that money back. Like I've never seen it. Like I get it, but I don't. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Right.
you're not even willing to invest $1 in training. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and I'm still that way. Like, I go away for business, it's a business trip. I use my own personal credit cards for my room charges. I would never charge my boss for the room charges. You know what I mean? Like I don't do it. I'm stupid that way, but I feel like they were nice enough to send me on the trip and they're paying for the plane, they're paying for the hotel.
Right.
Whether it's NAD, it's training, whatever. Like I don't know. I get maybe that's old school, maybe it's naive or whatever. But to me, it's your inability or your unwillingness to participate in your own career advancement
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
really is what burns the hole in me. And it just drives me crazy because people don't do it. They won't spend a minute after work to learn
Right.
something new.
Yeah.
So it just goes back into that thirst for knowledge. And do you want to learn? Do you have that inside of you? And that said, I don't know if you can teach that. I really don't know.
Yeah. The more I think about it as we're talking, it goes back to hiring. I think it goes back to hiring.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then again, but who taught us how to hire? Is there ever a class? Look, I couldn't even probably teach a class on hiring. I could pretend like I know what I'm doing. I was very fortunate, and people make fun of me. I was given lots of tools from Saturn Corporation. It was very much pie in the sky, very different back then in the beginning, in the late 90s, 97, 98, 99. And we were taught these skills about hiring, coaching, and so on. And they actually taught us how to do an interview and hire the right people and grade that interview and take yourself out of the interview. And you got to look at it as, more of a, how would you call it, a grade versus a feeling, and ask the same questions to every single candidate. And so they took us down this path, and I couldn't tell you that I did that every single time, but our companies, our owners, they wanted us to do that, and we turned those sheets in to our owners, and we are in our GMs before we made a hiring decision. And so our owners were much more involved back then, at least for me, or our GMs were much more involved in that. And so I always look at it like I look at my GM as I look at my GM as this is the man that I work for, right? I work for you. And if you guide me and I'm going to follow your path. And so I look up, and a couple of the dealers that I'm working with right now, one dealer is like so involved, and I love the fact he's involved. And I got another dealer group that's like, they can't make the meetings. And I'm like, I can't want it more than you as your outside service, right?
Right.
And so I always share with the GMs and the executives, it's got to come from the top, right? Whatever happens below is because of how you look at it, right? And so I always look at my top level guys, my GMs, my dealers, and I as professional as I can, and I put all the responsibility back on them. And guys, if you want it, we will get that done for you, but it's got to come, got to come from you. And I'm not going to say this word culture, environment, the way the place is run, it really starts at the top and works its way down. And so their name's on the sign, just like it's my company, my name's on the sign. And whatever happens is because of me. And I think that we got to look at our executives and ask them, how do you want us to make your business better, right? Hate to hang that on everybody, at the end of this episode, but it's really comes from the top. How is this place going to look, and how's it going to run? That's my rant.
Well, some of the what you said too is, it just reminded me, is the biggest heartbreak that I've had in the car business over the years. Let's just say since I was a manager, so 30 some years, whatever, has been when you see somebody with possibilities and talent, and they have it in them, and you want to take them under your wing, you want to teach them, you want to train them, and then they don't want it as bad as you do, right? And it doesn't work out, right?
Right.
It's like it is heartbreaking. You're like, I saw so much potential in that. And I can't tell you, I mean, I forget these people now because they've moved on, or I've moved on, whatever the case may be. But I will tell you, at the time, it used to really bother me. It's just like, wait a second, I had to do something wrong here. This person was the right person.
Right.
And I've always felt to pay it forward, like, again, I had some mentors, whether they were intentional mentors or not. I mean, again, I know one, EJ, was intentional. Other ones were mentors because of situations and things that happened. But, um, I'm glad I didn't break his heart. He actually, we had a conversation not too long ago on Father's Day, and, he thinks that, I've done great things in his business, and he's very proud of me like his son, and which is so cool to hear, because, I look at him as like my dad, right? But, when you get these people that just don't fulfill that, what you see as promise, or you see that, they have in them, it really, and now you're going to get it from a GM or a dealer principal that, they tell you it's lip service, right? It goes right back to Mickey and the metric. They're just Mickey in it, right? They really don't want it. They don't want it as bad as you do, Steve. And that's the heartbreak, right? Oh, let's sign up for this program. Let's do it. But they don't really want it. They just want to say, they want to check the box and say, I did that job. That's all they do. So it
Yeah.
is a challenge. I really can, I can see it happening in every aspect of this business over and over again. It's crazy.
That is very crazy. Well, you better give us a GM tip of the day before we run everybody off here at 33 minutes.
Well, GM tip of the day, again, from a fixed ops guy who was a GM, and then got out of the business, or got out of that, that role. I can tell you, when you step back, sometimes you see things that you don't see when you're in the trenches. You don't see that, you are checking a box sometimes. You're not really, lip service. People are going to see it. It's transparency. Like Steve said a minute ago, they want to sign up for training, but then they don't want to attend the meetings. You have to be a leader. You have to be that person out front. And I think that, that's the biggest role of a GM, is you have to be that person. It's your vision. It's your culture.
Yeah.
It's your personality that's going to drive the business. And you have to, walk the walk. You can't just Mickey that metric. You really can't. You want to Mickey the metric to your bosses? Great. Do it all day long. I wholly endorse that. All right. But don't Mickey the metric when it comes to your people below you. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that conversation kind of went in a lot of different directions, which I love. We better get out of here. And everybody, we will see you Friday, streaming live at 4 p.m. Fixed Ops Focus streaming live at 4 o'clock on Friday. See everybody soon.
See you then.
Fixed Ops Focus is not for everyone. Side effects of failing to like, subscribe, and share on all platforms may include declining gross, advisor turnover, phantom warranty denials, parts on back order, and dreams where your factory rep is also your dentist. Ask Dave Rogers and Steve Shaw if Fixed Ops Focus is right for you.